Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to speak in opposition, strong opposition to Senate Bill 831 and the overall concept of utilizing carbon capture and storage as some sort of proposed climate solution. Mr. President, as many stakeholders have indicated, this bill is deeply flawed and does not provide the necessary safeguards for our communities or our environment, nor does it provide an actual solution to combating the climate crisis that, regardless of whether you believe it's happening, it's all impacting every single one of us. By no means are my comments today a comprehensive list of all the concerns with Senate Bill 831, but some of them shared with us by some of the stakeholders who oppose this legislation. There's no real discussion around how many miles of pipeline will need to be built and where these pipelines will be built relative to actually transporting this captured carbon and how it will be injected into the ground. Stakeholders have indicated that this could cause issues putting these carbon capture pipelines through highly populated areas, even deemed as a utility, such as the Mariner East pipeline was deemed as a utility, despite it does not provide any resource for anyone's electric utilities, but rather is sent overseas to manufacture plastics. We have talked about how climate solutions are needed, but capturing carbon cannot be the centerpiece of any serious climate plan. Its track record makes it clear that this is, again, just another way of extending the profit-driven fossil fuel industry to continue what they've done for decades, which is loot and pollute our Commonwealth and really the world. As I quote Food and Water Watch, an organization fighting for clean air and clean water and a healthier future, said that, quote, betting on carbon capture as a primary solution to the climate crisis is essentially the same as giving up. Mr. President, if we are giving up on our Pennsylvania Constitution that guarantees in Article 1, Section 27 that states that people have a right to clean air, pure water, and to the preservation of the natural, scenic, historic, and aesthetic values of the environment, we need to move to 100% renewable energy, and carbon capture is simply not the answer, no matter how inconvenient that may be to the oil and gas industry. This technology is incredibly expensive, and it is unproven after billions of dollars in both public and private investments over decades. There are no carbon capture success stories, only failures. The reason that the oil and gas industry loves carbon capture is simple. It extends the fossil fuel profit era instead of ending it. A study by the Institute for Energy Economics and Financial Analysis said that 13 of the world's biggest projects, accounting for more than half the global carbon capture capacity, found that only 10 of them are either underperforming by large margins, trapping as little as half the CO2 promised, or they have already shut down. In addition to the environmental and economic reasons that this is a terrible idea for Pennsylvania, piping carbon dioxide through communities presents a dangerous threat to public health and safety. To transport captured carbon through pipelines, it's highly pressurized and it must be kept cold, which would require the construction of pipelines that can withstand those conditions. According to the Center for International Environmental Law, condensed carbon dioxide can be corrosive to the steel used to build those very pipelines, increasing the risks of leaks, ruptures, and potentially catastrophic running fractures. Residents in western Mississippi experienced these dangers in real life in 2020 when Denbury Enterprises carbon pipeline ruptured. 300 people were evacuated and 45 people were hospitalized. And this is just a small example of the great harm that can occur due to these ruptures. There are still Pennsylvania families living here today in our state without clean drinking water from the oil and gas industry, destroying the water table below. Instead of giving the fossil fuel industry yet another handout, we should be working together to make sure everyone's constitutional rights are actually upheld and that we all have clean air, clean water, and a future free of pollution and harm. It's time that we actually start enforcing the current regulations that exist and legislating protections for Pennsylvania residents and our environment. I ask my colleagues for a no vote on Senate Bill 831. Thank you, Mr. President.